Zara pressed her scaled palm against the viewport of the transport ship, watching the green world of Kepler 442b grow larger as they descended through its atmosphere. The agricultural colony looked peaceful from orbit, with vast fields stretching across continents like a patchwork quilt. She had been assigned here as the new Galactic Agricultural Supervisor, a position that should have been beneath someone of her status as a draconian noble, but recent political tensions had made Earth colonies less desirable postings for most species. The humans who had terraformed this world were known throughout the galaxy as simple farmers and laborers. They kept to themselves, grew food for the inner systems, and rarely caused trouble. Perfect for someone trying to lay low until the heat from her last assignment cooled down. Zara had accidentally exposed corruption in the Centauri mining consortium, and now she needed somewhere quiet to wait out the political storm. The transport touched down in the main settlement of New Haven, a modest collection of buildings surrounded by endless fields of golden grain that swayed in the alien breeze. As Zara descended the ramp, her translator automatically adjusted to the local human dialect. The gravity here was slightly lighter than her homeworld, making each step feel bouncy and strange. A delegation of humans waited for her, all dressed in simple work clothes that spoke of lives spent under the sun. Their leader stepped forward, a middle-aged woman with sun-weathered skin and calloused hands. "Welcome to Kepler 442b, Supervisor Zara. I'm Mayor Chen. We're honored to have someone of your expertise overseeing our operations." Zara nodded formally, her reptilian features betraying nothing of her inner thoughts. These humans seemed exactly as the reports described. Humble, hard-working, unremarkable. "I look forward to reviewing your agricultural processes and ensuring they meet Galactic Council standards." As they walked through the settlement, Mayor Chen pointed out various facilities. The humans had built everything with function over form, creating structures that served their purpose without unnecessary decoration. It was refreshingly honest, compared to the elaborate facade Zara was used to in the core worlds. "Our yields have increased 30% over the last 5 years, Mayor Chen explained as they passed a grain processing facility. "We've developed new crop rotation techniques that work particularly well with this world's soil composition." "Impressive," Zara replied, though she was thinking about how these improvements might affect her quarterly reports. The Galactic Council preferred steady, predictable production numbers. Innovation sometimes made administrators nervous. They reached the administrative building where Zara would be working. It was a simple 2-story structure with large windows that looked out over the fields. Inside, everything was clean and organized, with data terminals showing real-time information about crop conditions across the planet. "Your office is on the 2nd floor, Mayor Chen said, leading her up a staircase. "You'll have access to all our agricultural databases and communication systems. Is there anything specific you'd like to review first?" "I'll start with your personnel files," Zara said. "I need to understand who's responsible for what before I can properly assess your operations." Mayor Chen's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course. Though I should mention that many of our workers prefer to maintain their privacy. We respect personal boundaries here." Something in her tone made Zara's predatory instincts sharpen. In her experience, people who insisted on privacy usually had something to hide. "I'm sure we can work something out. I only need basic information about roles and responsibilities." The office they showed her was spacious and comfortable, with a desk positioned to overlook the fields. Through the window, Zara could see workers moving between the crops, tending to plants with practiced efficiency. Most were human, but she spotted a few other species scattered among them. "That's Marcus down there," Mayor Chen said, following her gaze. "He's one of our most dedicated field workers. Been with us for almost 10 years now." Zara looked where she pointed and saw a tall human male working among the grain stalks. Even from this distance, she could tell he was well built, with the kind of lean muscle that came from physical labor. He moved with an odd grace for a farmer, each motion precise and purposeful. "What's his background?" Zara asked casually. "He came to us from off-world. Doesn't talk much about his past, but he's an excellent worker. Knows more about crop diseases than anyone else on the planet." Another red flag. In Zara's experience, people who didn't talk about their past usually had good reason to keep quiet. She made a mental note to review Marcus's file first. Over the next few days, Zara settled into her new routine. The work was straightforward enough, reviewing production reports and ensuring compliance with various galactic regulations. The humans were efficient and cooperative, answering her questions without complaint and providing any data she requested. But something felt off about the whole operation. The productivity numbers were too good, the workers too skilled, and the technology too advanced for what should have been a simple farming colony. When she dug deeper into the records, she found gaps and inconsistencies that suggested deliberately obscured information. Marcus, the field worker Mayor Chen had pointed out, became a particular puzzle. His official file was suspiciously sparse, listing only basic information about his agricultural duties and work performance. No previous employment history, no educational background, no emergency contacts. For someone who supposedly knew more about crop diseases than anyone else on the planet, his credentials were remarkably thin. Zara decided to observe him more closely. She began taking walks through the fields during her lunch breaks, always carrying a data pad to make it look like she was conducting routine inspections. Marcus worked in a different section each day, rotating through various crops with the kind of systematic thoroughness that spoke of advanced planning. He was definitely human. But there was something unusual about the way he carried himself. Most farmers she'd encountered moved with the steady, unhurried pace of people who worked with natural rhythms. Marcus moved like someone who was always ready for trouble, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings even while his hands were busy with routine tasks. When she tried to engage him in conversation, his responses were polite but minimal. He answered her questions about crop yields and soil conditions with technical precision that suggested extensive training, but deflected any personal inquiries with practiced ease. "How long have you been working in agriculture?" she asked one afternoon, pretending to examine a particularly healthy stand of grain. "Long enough to know what works," he replied without looking up from the plant he was checking for signs of pest damage. "Did you study it formally, or learn on the job?" "Both, I suppose." His tone was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. Zara tried a different approach. "This is beautiful country. Do you enjoy living here?" That got a reaction, though a subtle one. Marcus paused in his work for just a moment, his eyes scanning the horizon before returning to the plant. "It's peaceful. We have a pleaser." The word carried weight, as if peace was something he valued highly because he hadn't always had it. Zara filed that observation away with her growing collection of questions about this supposedly simple farmhand. Her investigation took an unexpected turn when she discovered encrypted files buried deep in the colony's computer systems. They were protected by security protocols far more sophisticated than anything a farming colony should need. And accessing them would require skills Zara didn't possess, but she knew someone who might. During her previous assignment, she'd worked with a Nexarian tech specialist named Vex, who owed her a favor. A discreet communication to the right channels brought him to Kepler 442b within a week, officially listed as a consultant reviewing agricultural data systems. "This encryption is military grade," Vex told her after examining the files. His insectoid features were unreadable, but his tone carried surprise. "Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. This isn't farmer-level security. Can you crack it?" "Given time, yes. But I have to ask why a simple agricultural supervisor is so interested in classified data." Zara considered how much to tell him. "Something's not right about this place. These humans are hiding something, and I need to know what it is before it becomes my problem." Vex worked for 3 days, his specialized neural interfaces allowing him to probe the encrypted systems in ways no other species could match. When he finally broke through, what they found changed everything. The files contained detailed personnel records that painted a very different picture of the colony's residents. Many of the so-called farmers had backgrounds in fields that had nothing to do with agriculture. There were former military officers, retired intelligence operatives, discharged special forces soldiers, and other individuals with skills that seemed wildly inappropriate for peaceful farming. Marcus's real file was the most shocking of all. His full name was Marcus Chen Okafor, and his service record read like something from a military thriller. Special Forces, Black Operations, classified missions that had taken him to the furthest reaches of known space, multiple commendations for valor, advanced training in weapons, tactics, and survival skills that would make him dangerous in any situation. "He's not a farmhand," Vex said quietly. "He's probably one of the most dangerous humans alive." Zara stared at Marcus's photo, trying to reconcile the image of the quiet field worker with the highly trained operative described in these files. What's someone like that doing growing grain on a backwater world? "Maybe the same thing you're doing," Vex suggested. "Lying low until things cool down." The implications hit her like a physical blow. If Marcus and others like him were here hiding from something, what did that make Kepler 442 be? And more importantly, what did that make her presence here? Before she could process this information fully, her door chimed. Mayor Chen stood in the hallway, her expression grim. "Supervisor Zara, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting ships approaching the system, unknown configuration, but they're not responding to our hails." Zara's blood ran cold. In her experience, unidentified ships that didn't respond to communications usually meant trouble. How many ships? At least 6, possibly more. They'll be in orbit within hours. As if summoned by the emergency, Marcus appeared in the hallway behind Mayor Chen. But this wasn't the quiet farmhand Zara had been observing for weeks. This man moved with lethal purpose. His entire demeanor transformed in an instant. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command. "Ma'am, we need to implement Safeguard Protocol 7 immediately. All civilians to the bunkers, defensive positions manned, and communication blackout in effect." Mayor Chen nodded without question, clearly recognizing a shift in the chain of command. "Understood. I'll coordinate the civilian evacuation." Marcus turned to Zara, and she found herself looking into eyes that belonged to a warrior, not a farmer. "Supervisor, I'm afraid your inspection is about to become significantly more complicated. We need to discuss what you've learned about this colony, and we need to do it now." The transformation was so complete that Zara wondered how she had ever mistaken him for a simple agricultural worker. Everything about his posture, his tone, his commanding presence, spoke of extensive military training and combat experience. "You're not really a farmhand," she said, though it felt foolish to state something so obvious. "And you're not really just an agricultural supervisor who happened to stumble onto the most classified human settlement in this sector," Marcus replied. "So I think we both have some explaining to do." Alarms began sounding throughout the settlement as the approaching ships drew closer. Through the windows, Zara could see the supposedly peaceful farmers moving with military precision, transforming from agricultural workers into what was clearly a well-trained defense force. She realized that everything she thought she knew about this place had been carefully constructed fiction. The question now was whether she was about to become part of whatever was coming, or if she had accidentally walked into the middle of something that could get her killed. Marcus led Zara through corridors she hadn't known existed, hidden passages that connected the settlement's buildings in a network designed for defense rather than convenience. The agricultural administration building she'd been working in for weeks revealed itself as something far more sophisticated, with blast doors, secure communication centers, and weapon storage areas concealed behind false walls. "The ships are Void Reaper class," Marcus explained as they walked, consulting a tactical display on his wrist device. "Kithra Federation vessels. They're not here for inspection or trade." Zara's scales rippled with involuntary fear. The Kithra were notorious throughout the galaxy for their aggressive expansion policies and complete disregard for diplomatic protocols. They took what they wanted and eliminated anyone who stood in their way. What could they possibly want with a farming colony? "The same thing we hoped they'd never find," Marcus said, leading her into what appeared to be a command center hidden beneath the main settlement. Banks of monitors showed defensive positions being manned throughout the area, and Zara was shocked to see the sophisticated military equipment emerging from underground bunkers. The room buzzed with activity as the colony's residents coordinated their response to the approaching threat. But these weren't panicked farmers facing an unexpected crisis. These were professionals executing a well-rehearsed plan, speaking in military terminology, and moving with the efficiency of a unit that had trained together for years. Mayor Chen stood at the center of it all, but like Marcus, her entire demeanor had transformed. Gone was the humble agricultural administrator. In her place stood a commanding officer, issuing orders with absolute authority. Perimeter teams, report status, she spoke into a communication device. Northern approach secured. Anti-aircraft batteries online. Eastern Valley positions manned and ready. Southern Ridge teams in position with long-range capabilities. Zara listened to the reports with growing amazement. In less than an hour, this supposed farming settlement had revealed itself as a heavily fortified military installation with defensive capabilities that could challenge a small fleet. Supervisor. Mayor Chen called out, noticing her presence. I apologize for the deception. But circumstances have forced our hand. You're about to witness something that's been classified at the highest levels of human government for over a decade. What is this place? Zara demanded, her diplomatic training finally reasserting itself. I need to understand what I've walked into. Marcus stepped forward, and Zara noticed for the first time that he was wearing a sidearm that definitely hadn't come from any agricultural supply catalog. This colony is Operation Seedfall. It's one of 12 installations where humanity has been secretly preparing for the inevitable expansion of aggressive species into human territory. We're not farmers, Mayor Chen added. We're the first colonial defense regiment. And every person on this planet is either active military or retired special operations personnel. The agricultural operations are real, but they're secondary to our primary mission. The tactical displays showed the Kithra ships entering orbit, their weapon systems active and scanning the planet's surface. Zara could see that there were actually 8 vessels, a significant force for what the attackers believed was a defenseless farming world. They think this is going to be easy, Marcus observed, studying the enemy formation. Standard Kithra doctrine calls for orbital bombardment, followed by ground assault, to secure valuable resources. What resources? Zara asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. The real question is how they found out, Mayor Chen said grimly. This operation has been compartmentalized at the highest levels. Either we have a security breach somewhere in the human government, or, she looked directly at Zara, and the implication was clear. The only outsider who had been given access to colony records was the draconian agricultural supervisor who had arrived just weeks before the attack. I didn't tell anyone, Zara said quickly, understanding the accusation in their eyes. I was assigned here because of political troubles on my last posting. I was supposed to be lying low, not gathering intelligence. Marcus studied her with the kind of analytical gaze she'd seen from intelligence operatives. The timing is suspicious. How do we know you weren't sent here specifically to gather information about our defensive capabilities? Before Zara could respond, new alarms sounded throughout the command center. The tactical displays showed energy signatures building on the Kithra ships as they prepared to begin their attack. Orbital bombardment commencing in 30 seconds, someone reported from across the room. All personnel, to hardened positions. Belay that, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the activity. We're not going defensive. Chen, activate the sword protocols. Mayor Chen's eyes widened. Marcus, we've never tested those systems in actual combat. The power requirements alone could overload our entire grid. Better than letting them pound us into dust from orbit, Marcus replied. And it's time these Kithra learned why you don't attack human colonies without doing proper reconnaissance first. Zara watched in fascination as the command center transformed once again. New displays activated, showing weapon systems she hadn't imagined possible for a colonial installation. Deep underground, massive generators hummed to life, feeding power to devices that had been hidden beneath the planet's surface for years. What are the sword protocols? She asked. Humanity's response to the doctrine of orbital bombardment, Marcus explained, his fingers dancing over control interfaces with practiced precision. Every species in the galaxy assumes that surface installations are helpless against ships in orbit. They're about to discover how wrong that assumption can be. Through the command center's displays, Zara watched as sections of the planet's surface began to change. What had appeared to be natural hills and rock formations were sliding away to reveal massive weapons emplacements. Electromagnetic railguns capable of launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed emerged from underground bunkers. their targeting systems locking onto the Kithra vessels in orbit. These aren't standard colonial defense weapons, Zara breathed, recognizing technology that surpassed anything she'd seen in the galactic military forces. No, they're not, Marcus agreed. They're human weapons. We've been developing them specifically for fighting enemies who think orbital superiority guarantees victory. The first Kithra energy beams lanced down from space, striking what the attackers believed were critical infrastructure targets. But instead of destroying vital systems, the beams splashed harmlessly against energy shields that activated milliseconds before impact. Defensive screens holding at 97%, someone reported. Enemy targeting appears to be based on outdated intelligence. Of course it is, Mayor Chen said with grim satisfaction. They think they're attacking a farming colony. They're using the wrong targeting algorithms entirely. Marcus was coordinating the counterattack with the kind of calm efficiency that spoke of extensive combat experience. Railgun batteries 1 through 4. Target the lead vessel. Full power, simultaneous strike. Zara watched the tactical display as 4 different weapons installations fired in perfect synchronization. The projectiles they launched were invisible to conventional sensors, moving too fast to track until they struck their targets. The lead Kithra ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized by kinetic energy that overwhelmed its shields and armor in microseconds. The remaining vessels immediately began evasive maneuvers, but they were trapped by their own assumptions. They had positioned themselves for orbital bombardment of surface targets, not for combat against weapons that could reach them in space. Batteries 5 through 8. Target the destroyer on the western approach. Marcus continued, his voice never changing tone despite the magnitude of what was happening. Ion cannons. Prepare to disable their remaining frigates. More weapons emerged from hidden positions across the planet's surface. Zara realized that virtually every significant geographical feature in the area had been designed to conceal military installations. The pastoral farming community she'd been supervising was actually one of the most heavily armed locations she'd ever seen. The Kithra were discovering the same thing. Their remaining ships were taking defensive positions, trying to understand how a supposedly defenseless farming world had just destroyed their flagship with weapons that technically shouldn't exist. They're attempting to withdraw, the sensor operator reported. Not an option, Marcus said firmly. We can't let them report what they've found here. Activate the interdiction field. Space around the planet began to shimmer as massive generators created a field that would prevent faster-than-light travel. The Kithra ships were effectively trapped, unable to escape and report the existence of humanity's hidden military capabilities. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of technological superiority. The Kithra had come expecting to overwhelm a peaceful agricultural colony. Instead, they found themselves facing weapons that outclassed their own by generations. One by one, their ships were systematically disabled or destroyed by defensive systems that shouldn't have existed on a frontier farming world. Last vessel neutralized, the tactical officer announced. No survivors, no escape pods, no transmitted messages. The command center fell silent as the magnitude of what had just happened settled over everyone present. They had just completely destroyed a Kithra battle group without taking a single casualty, or even sustaining significant damage to their installations. Marcus finally relaxed, stepping back from the control interfaces. When he looked at Zara, she saw not the quiet farmhand she'd been observing for weeks, but a military commander who had just executed a flawless defense of his position. Now you understand what this place really is, he said, and why your presence here has created a significant problem for everyone involved. Zara's mind was reeling from everything she had witnessed. The agricultural operations, the production reports, all of it was real, completely real, Mayor Chen confirmed. This settlement produces more food per hectare than any other human colony. We just happen to also be the most heavily armed farming community in the galaxy. But why? Zara asked. Why hide a military installation as a farming colony? Marcus and Mayor Chen exchanged glances before Marcus answered. Because eventually, species like the Kithra were going to start testing human defenses. When they did, we wanted them to choose targets they thought would be easy. We wanted them to learn the hard way that there's no such thing as an easy target when you're dealing with humanity. How many installations like this exist? That's classified information that you're not cleared to know, Marcus replied. What matters now is deciding what happens next. You've seen capabilities that are supposed to remain secret for at least another decade. Zara understood the implication. She had become a security risk simply by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her options were limited, and none of them were particularly appealing. You could arrange for an accident, she said quietly. Make it look like I was killed when the Kithra attacked. That's one option, Marcus admitted. But it's not the only one. Before he could explain what he meant, new alarms began sounding. The sensor displays showed additional ships entering the system. But these were different from the Kithra vessels they had just destroyed. 3 hegemony cruisers. Approaching fast, the sensor operator called out. They're broadcasting Galactic Council authorization codes. Marcus cursed under his breath. They must have detected the energy signatures from our weapons. The hegemony has been looking for evidence of human military development for years. Arvo. 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 Mayor Chen's expression was grim. This just went from a local security issue to a potential interstellar incident. If the Galactic Council learns about our capabilities, then the next war won't be fought on humanity's terms, Marcus finished. We'll have lost our strategic advantage before we ever had a chance to use it. Zara looked between them, understanding that she was about to become part of something much larger than a simple agricultural inspection. The peaceful farming colony of Kepler 442b had just revealed itself as the tip of a military iceberg that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And somehow, she was now standing at the center of it all. The hegemony cruisers settled into orbit with the kind of deliberate precision that announced their crews were conducting a formal investigation rather than making a friendly visit. Zara watched the tactical displays as the massive vessels deployed sensor arrays capable of detecting energy signatures from the recent battle. They know something happened here, Marcus observed, studying the hegemony ship's movement patterns. Question is how much they can prove. Mayor Chen had been monitoring communications from the approaching vessels. They're requesting immediate contact with planetary authority and demanding explanations for the weapons signatures they detected during their approach. Standard hegemony procedure, Marcus replied. They'll want to inspect the colony, interview personnel, and file a comprehensive report with the Galactic Council. If they discover what this place really is, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Discovery would mean the end of humanity's carefully maintained image as a peaceful, primarily agricultural species. The strategic advantages that came from being underestimated would vanish overnight. There's another option, Zara said quietly, drawing surprised looks from both humans. One that doesn't involve anyone disappearing or lying to the hegemony. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. You make me part of it, Zara continued. Officially, the Kithra attack was real. And so was your response. But instead of being a security breach, I become the Galactic Council observer who witnessed humanity defending itself against unprovoked aggression. Mayor Chen frowned. That would require you to submit a report supporting our version of events. You'd be risking your career and possibly your life if anyone discovers the truth about what you've seen here. Maybe, Zara agreed. But consider what I've learned about humanity in the past few weeks. You're not the simple farmers the galaxy believes you to be. You're warriors who chose to be farmers while staying ready to defend yourselves when necessary. That's not deception. That's preparation. Marcus studied her with renewed interest. You'd be willing to falsify an official report to the Galactic Council? I'd be willing to submit an accurate report that emphasizes certain facts while omitting others, Zara corrected. The attack happened. You defended yourselves successfully. The agricultural operations are legitimate and productive. All of that is completely true. Before anyone could respond, a new voice joined the conversation through the communication system. This is Admiral Thessarian of the hegemony cruiser Vigilant Justice. I am ordering all personnel on the surface to prepare for immediate inspection. Any attempt to interfere with this investigation will be considered an act of aggression against the Galactic Council. Marcus and Mayor Chen exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their opinion of hegemony, arrogance, but they also both looked at Zara. recognizing that her suggestion might be their best option for avoiding a confrontation that could escalate into open conflict. "If we're going to do this," Marcus said finally, "we need to move fast. The colony has to look like what it's supposed to be when those inspectors arrive." What followed was the most impressive display of organization and efficiency Zara had ever witnessed. Within minutes, the revealed military installations were being concealed again. Weapons systems powering down and retracting into hidden bunkers. The command center transformed back into what appeared to be a simple agricultural administration facility. Personnel changed from combat gear into work clothes with practice speed, resuming their roles as farmers and agricultural technicians. The defensive positions that had been manned during the battle were abandoned, their operators melting back into the general population as if they had never been anything but peaceful colonists. "Emergency protocols are designed for exactly this scenario," Mayor Chen explained as she watched her people execute the transition. "Every person here can switch between their military and civilian roles in under 10 minutes. Marcus had changed into simple farming clothes, but Zara noticed he still moved with the controlled precision of a trained warrior. The transformation was convincing enough to fool casual observation, but anyone who looked closely would see signs that these people were far more than they appeared. "What about the debris in orbit?" Zara asked, pointing at the tactical display that still showed wreckage from the destroyed Kithra ships. "Already handled," Marcus replied. "Automated systems are using focused plasma beams to vaporize anything larger than a few centimeters. By the time the hegemony inspectors arrive, there won't be enough evidence left to prove those ships ever existed." The efficiency was breathtaking. In less than an hour, all traces of the battle were being systematically eliminated, while the colony returned to its carefully maintained facade of peaceful agricultural operations. "Supervisor Zara," Mayor Chen said, using her official title again, "we're going to need you to take the lead when the hegemony team arrives. As the official Galactic Council representative present during the incident, your testimony will carry more weight than anything we could say." Zara nodded, understanding the magnitude of what she was agreeing to. "What's our official story?" "The truth? With selective editing," Marcus replied. "Unknown ships approached the system and ignored all attempts at communication. When they began what appeared to be an attack run on the colony, our defensive systems engaged them. The attackers were destroyed, but not before causing significant damage to our agricultural operations." "Defensive systems?" Zara asked. "Standard colonial protection grid," Mayor Chen explained. "Every human settlement is supposed to have basic defensive capabilities. We just happen to have more effective systems than most." The hegemony shuttles began their descent an hour later, their sensors actively scanning the surface as they approached. From her position in the administration building, Zara watched the inspection team emerge from their craft. The group was led by Admiral Thessarian himself, a tall Praxian whose crystalline features reflected light in patterns that indicated formal authority. "Remember," Marcus said quietly before they went to meet the inspectors, "you're a draconian agricultural supervisor who was conducting a routine inspection when the colony was attacked. You witnessed our defensive response and can testify that it was proportionate to the threat we faced." Admiral Thessarian approached with the kind of rigid formality that made Zara's diplomatic instincts cringe. Praxians were notorious for their literal interpretation of regulations and their complete inability to understand nuance or context. "I am Admiral Thessarian," he announced without preamble. "I am here to investigate reports of unauthorized weapons discharges in this system. Who is in charge of this installation?" "I am Mayor Chen, elected administrator of this settlement," Mayor Chen replied smoothly. "This is Supervisor Zara of the Galactic Agricultural Council, who has been conducting an inspection of our operations." Admiral Thessarian's crystalline features shifted to focus on Zara. "You witnessed the events that occurred here?" "I did," Zara replied, drawing on years of diplomatic training to project calm authority. "The colony was attacked by unidentified vessels that ignored all attempts at peaceful communication. The colonists defended themselves, using their legally mandated defensive systems. The energy signatures we detected were far beyond normal colonial defensive capabilities," Admiral Thessarian stated flatly. "Explain this discrepancy." Marcus stepped forward, and Zara was impressed by how completely he had assumed the role of a humble agricultural technician. "Sir, we've been having problems with power fluctuations in our defensive grid. The engineers think it might be related to some experimental energy storage systems we've been testing for improved agricultural equipment." It was a masterful explanation that contained just enough technical complexity to discourage detailed investigation, while providing a plausible reason for the unusual energy readings. Admiral Thessarian's investigation team spent 3 days examining every aspect of the colony's operations. They inspected agricultural facilities, interviewed personnel, and conducted detailed scans of all major installations. Throughout the process, Zara maintained her role as the official observer, providing testimony that supported the colonists' version of events. The humans' performance was flawless. Every person they interviewed knew their cover identity perfectly. From agricultural workers who could discuss crop rotation techniques in detail, to equipment technicians who understood farming machinery at the molecular level, the military installations remained completely hidden, concealed by technology that seemed indistinguishable from standard agricultural equipment. "Your defensive systems appear to be within normal parameters for a colonial installation," Admiral Thessarian finally announced on the 3rd day. "However, I am required to note that the energy signatures detected during our approach suggest capabilities beyond what would normally be expected from agricultural defense systems." "As I mentioned earlier," Marcus replied, maintaining his role as a simple technician, "we've been experiencing irregularities with our power grid. The experimental energy systems we're testing sometimes produce unexpected results." Admiral Thessarian's report would officially classify the incident as a successful defense against raiders using standard colonial protection systems, enhanced by experimental agricultural technology. The attacking vessels were listed as unknown raiders, completely destroyed during defensive action, with no surviving evidence to contradict the official narrative. After the hegemony team departed, Zara found herself alone with Marcus in the same fields where she had first observed him working weeks earlier. But now she understood what she was really looking at. Every plant, every piece of equipment, every seemingly random hill or rock formation was part of an integrated defensive system that could transform this peaceful agricultural settlement into a fortress capable of defeating a modern battle fleet. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now, you write your official report," Marcus replied. "And humanity continues preparing for the day when hiding won't be an option anymore. How long do you think that will be?" Marcus looked up at the sky where the stars were becoming visible in the gathering twilight. "Species like the Kithra are getting bolder. The hegemony is starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Sooner or later, someone's going to push hard enough that we'll have to show them exactly what humanity is capable of. And when that happens, the galaxy is going to discover that the peaceful farmers they've been ignoring for the past century are actually the most dangerous military force in known space." Marcus smiled, and for a moment, Zara could see both the simple agricultural worker and the elite soldier existing in the same person. "But until then, we keep growing food and pretending to be harmless." Zara's report to the Galactic Agricultural Council praised the productivity and innovation of the human colonists, while noting their successful defense against unprovoked aggression. She recommended continued support for their agricultural operations and suggested that other species could learn valuable farming techniques from human methods. What she didn't mention was the true nature of what she had witnessed. She didn't describe the advanced military technology hidden beneath the peaceful exterior, or the fact that every person on Kepler 442b was a trained warrior capable of defending their home against superior forces. But she did understand, perhaps better than anyone else in the galaxy, that humanity was playing a much longer game than anyone realized. They weren't just peaceful farmers who happened to be good at defending themselves. They were a warrior species that had chosen to master agriculture while quietly preparing for the day when peaceful coexistence would no longer be possible. The galaxy saw them as simple, hard-working farmers. Zara now knew they were something far more dangerous. They were patient, organized, and absolutely ready for whatever was coming next. As she prepared to leave Kepler 442b, Zara realized she had become part of something that could reshape the balance of power among the stars. And somehow, that felt exactly right. She had come to this world as a supervisor seeking a quiet assignment. She was leaving as someone who understood that sometimes the most important work happened in places where nobody thought to look. Marcus had returned to his fields, but Zara knew she would never again see a human agricultural worker without wondering what other capabilities they might be hiding. Humanity had shown her that the greatest strength sometimes came from being underestimated by your enemies. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way.